this one feels a lot different. Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair was originally released on the PlayStation Portable back in 2012 in Japan, and like the previous game, over time came to other devices. Like the first game, this one's also available on Steam, and I happened to buy it during the summer sale. Danganronpa 2 has quite a different atmosphere than the previous game. Not only that, but you play as an entirely new character named Hajime Hinata, who cannot remember his talent. The majority of the other characters are entirely new as well. The beginning of the game starts with someone waking Hajime up on a beach before he has a flashback to what happened previously. He remembered the school at Hope's Peak Academy and walking into a new classroom before getting trapped inside. Not long after that, a new character named Usami appears. She's supposed to be their teacher and sends them on a school trip to a place known as Jabberwock Island. How they get there seems like magic. Usami tells the class what their goal is: to spend time with each other and earn hope fragments by improving their relationships. Not too much later, Hajime somehow ends up passing out. Geez, you probably shouldn't have been doing drugs, man. The student that wakes him up is named Nagito Kumaida, who is the ultimate lucky student. This guy takes him around the island where he meets the rest of the cast, who also have ultimate abilities like the characters in the first game. Throughout the island, they run into Akane Owari, the ultimate gymnast, Byakuya Togami, the ultimate affluent progeny. Byakuya, why are you here and why are you suddenly fat? Chiaki Nanami, the ultimate gamer, Fuyohiko Kuzurio, the ultimate gangster, Gundam Tanaka, the ultimate breeder, Hyoko Saionji, the ultimate dancer, Ibuki Miyoda, the ultimate musician, Kazuichi Soda, the ultimate mechanic, Mahiru Koizumi, the ultimate photographer, Mikan Sumiki, the ultimate nurse, Nekomaru Nidai, the ultimate team manager, Peko Pekoyama, the ultimate swordswoman, Sonia Nevermind, the ultimate princess, and Haroteru Hanamura, the ultimate cook. One of the big differences between this game and the first game is that the characters in this one are far more interesting. After Hajime meets all of the characters, nearly everyone decides to spend some time in the water, which Hajime is very pessimistic about. When Hajime starts to at least partially accept the situation, Monokuma shows up and takes over the island. He steals Usami's position and renames her Monami before calling her his little sister. Monokuma then ends up getting these students involved in a killing game. What were you expecting Monokuma to do with them? Have a tea party? It takes a bit of time for the students to realize that Monokuma is someone that they don't want to mess with. The next day, when Hajime wakes up, Monokuma won't let him leave until he finds something he hid in there, a stuffed animal. Like the previous game, you can get monocoins, but they come from the stuffed animals you find this time. When it comes to gameplay, for the most part outside of class trials, almost everything's the same. What's different is when exploring the island, it's in third person instead of first person, but when in specific areas, it switches back to first person. It isn't too long after the next day begins when you get to the game's free time events, which are the same as the previous game. Either you're exploring and looking for monocoins, or you're spending time with the other students, not knowing which ones will later kill or be killed. After some peaceful time on the island, something the characters didn't expect, but anyone that knows anything about Danganronpa would expect, happens. A murder. Like Makoto Naegi in the previous game, Hajime has to go around investigating these murders, gathering evidence, or truth bullets as the game likes to call them. After a while, everyone is called to the class trial where each person has to give arguments on who they think is responsible. It's the same as the previous game, but with some new gameplay elements. When it gets to non-stop debates, it immediately gives you a ton of truth bullets to choose from, when the first game only gave you one on the first debate. For the most part, non-stop debates are the same, using other statements as contradictions, and white noise still exists. What's different this time is that there are statements that you agree to if you shoot at them. These cannot be used to contradict other statements though. It's certainly different and can be challenging to figure out when you need to point out a contradiction or when you need to agree with one of your classmates. Another returning feature is Hangman's Gambit, and it's improved. Yeah, improved my ass. They took what was a decent gameplay element in the first game and completely f***ed it up. This time, none of the letters are filled out, so you really have to play a guessing game to figure out what words you need to spell. In this version of Hangman's Gambit, the letters go by and you have to hit one letter and then grab another of the same letter. After that, you can either destroy it or add it to the word. If different letters come together, you lose health. Most of the time, I ended up taking damage or pressing the wrong button. The next returning feature that the developers also broke is the bullet time battles, which have been renamed Panic Talk Action. It's much harder to actually press the buttons at the right time, and the opponent still being able to hide all the things you need to click when you pass over them certainly doesn't help. When you get to the end of these, instead of presenting a truth bullet, you have to press the buttons in a certain order to form a statement. Get the statement wrong, and you start all over again. One of the returning gameplay elements I actually did like was the closing argument. What's different this time is that instead of having all the images at once, is that they are all given to you a few at a time in stocks, and you have to figure out which ones will be used. Once you've placed all the ones that actually fit in the sequence of events where they belong, the rest disappear and you get a new stock. What's nice about this one is it tells you when you're wrong right away, rather than waiting until Hajime is going over the case. The game doesn't have just shittier versions of old gameplay elements, I mean improved gameplay elements, but there are also some new ones as well, and one of them is complete. One of these new gameplay features is called Rebuttal Showdown. Other students may provide counter-arguments when Hajime finds weak points. In order to progress through these, the player must cut through their opponent's statements horizontally, vertically, and diagonally, which can be a nightmare when using a keyboard. If the argument is going in favor of Hajime at the end of a sequence, the player will be able to advance to the next round. If not, Hajime takes damage and retreats to the previous sequence. When the player gets to a sequence that has a contradiction, they must use one of their truth blades, which basically are the same thing as truth bullets. If neither is winning the argument, a cross-sword section will begin where the player needs to button mash in order to advance, or they will be switched back. The last gameplay feature I'd like to talk about was the most tolerable for me. It is a snowboarding minigame which has the player go down a logical tube while avoiding obstacles and making jumps. At certain points, the player is required to choose between multiple routes based on a question given in order to arrive at a logical conclusion. Like the first game, the killer ends up getting caught in the end, assuming you won the trial, and executed with the other students forced to watch. After that, the surviving students continue to explore Jabberwock Island and spend time trying to figure out how to escape. Like last time, there are several free time events between cases and some moments to explore new islands. There are 6 cases in the game total like the previous game, and some are more enjoyable than others. In the end, this game was truly something. It manages to have a better story but mixes it in with crappy gameplay elements, which is very disappointing. Even so, I still managed to really enjoy the time I spent playing Danganronpa 2, and like the previous game, there came a point where I didn't want any more of the students to kill or be killed, but that was too much to ask for, I guess. Even so, I just wanted to keep playing to see what would happen next. My first playthrough of this game took more time than my first playthrough of the previous game. Not only is the story more interesting this time around, but the chapters are longer as well. Like the previous game, this one took what I was expecting to happen and threw it out the window. Nearly all of the theories I had going through my head while playing were wrong. Only a couple of the killers, were correct. Getting closer to the end of the game, some of the personalities I really liked were gone, and I was stuck with whoever didn't die. Toward the end of the game, things were definitely interesting, but there were some issues I had with some of the game's plot twists. The game doesn't properly explain how all of these twists work, and doesn't even go into enough detail about a certain character's plot twist. Even with these problems, the final moments in Danganronpa 2 were a lot better than the final moments of the previous game, with some really great lines from the characters throughout the game as well. These lines are one of the reasons I like the characters in this game more, and I was more likely to find myself feeling a bit sad when one of them died. At the end of the game, not everything with the new cast is cleared up, but we do get to find out a little bit about what happened after the first game ended. Overall, Danganronpa 2 is a good game, but it has some issues that I didn't have with the first game, like the broken new gameplay mechanics during class trials. There are some flaws here and there, but it didn't make me feel like playing was a waste of time. When this game isn't worse than the first game in one area, it manages to handle things much better than the first game did. Even the soundtrack is better with its new tracks and some remixes. The game looks pretty good too, the new characters and locations look great. In the end, Danganronpa 2 is one of the better Danganronpa games, and is worth the time spent playing it. That's all I have to say on this game. Well, if you liked what you saw, like, comment, subscribe, and add the video to your favorites, or whatever else you can do. You can also check out some of my other videos or check out my social media accounts, which I've provided links to in the description.